Australian authorities insist there's no cause for alarm, but overseas governments are urging tens of thousands of women with a particular type of breast implant to have it removed. Tests in the UK and France have fuelled concerns that the poly-implant prosthese, or PIP implant, has a rupture rate as high as 34%. The French manufacturer is bankrupt, and it's been revealed that PIP implants contained industrial, not medical-grade silicone. The Therapeutic Goods Administration says its tests haven't revealed any toxic substances, but some patients and surgeons say the organisation is not doing enough to ensure the safety of Australian women. Sarah Dingle reports.
I just wanted to feel a little bit more sexy. Yeah, it was just time for me.
Like thousands of Australian women, Darlene WATKINS made the choice to get breast implants.
I just wanted to do something for myself.
In 2005, after having 3 children, the West Australian businesswoman was fitted with the French-made poly-implant prosthese, or PIP implant. But in May 2010, she received a rude shock. Her surgeon told her French authorities were worried about a high rupture rate, and he recommended an ultrasound.
The ultrasound showed a rupture in one side. I rang him straight away and he booked me in for a removal within 48 hours.
As distressing as that was, there was more to come.
The one that was ruptured, the actual shell was decaying. The other implant, he called it a bleed. It was leaking through the shell of the implant. That didn't show up on an ultrasound at all.
It's been traumatic for me, so for the patients it must be incredibly traumatic.
Dr Tim Cooper is Darlene WATKINS' plastic surgeon. Despite no alarms being sounded by Australia's Therapeutic Goods Administration, in early 2010 he tried to contact all his patients with PIP implants, reviewing 107. 25 had ruptured implants. 2 women had ruptures on both sides.
The rupture rate amongst my patients was just over 20% for that cohort between 2005 and 7.
No, look, the advice that we have currently is that there is no need for there to be urgent testing, that Australian women don't need to be unnecessarily concerned.
The TGA says it's only had 37 reports of PIP breast implant rupture, which represents less than 1% for all PIP implants used in Australia over the last decade. The TGA says this is well within the expected rupture rate for silicone breast implants, although this rate relies on self-reporting.
It is disconcerting that there's still public TGA, which is our regulatory body, is still saying that the rupture rate is within acceptable limits. It's clearly not.
If there are no problems and indeed the shells are intact, then there's no risk to our knowledge because the gel will not be in contact with the patient's body.
Dr RODNEY is the president of the Australian Society of Plastic Surgeons and part of the TGA's expert panel monitoring PIP implants. He says ruptures can't be physically felt, but there's no evidence at this stage to indicate all women with PIP implants should have an ultrasound or MRI.
The truth is that with a lack of good international data, we don't know in any comparative sets or series whether PIP rupture rate is greater than other implants at this stage.
Dr RODNEY visited the PIP factory in France in 2006 to examine a new type of implant.
When I went to visit the company, I was not very impressed with the science they were putting forward and chose not to proceed with that study.
After that, he stopped using PIP implants altogether, but he maintains that the prosthese should only be removed if a scan proves they've ruptured. But overseas, European governments are advising routine removal. The French, Venezuelan and Colombian governments are paying for tens of thousands of women to have the implants removed. Compounding global concerns is the revelation that to keep costs down, the implants were made of industrial, not medical grade silicone.
We're not aware of any of the toxic gels being present in any of the implants that were sold in Australia. Further investigations may help us reveal that.
We understand that these implants have been manufactured using an industrial grade of silicon, and the French medical regulator who prompted the recall to be announced earlier last year is very concerned that that substance is linked with cancer in its recipient.
Rebecca JANCAUSKAS is from Queensland's Shine Lawyers. Her firm has already been approached by a number of Australian women worried about their implants.
If evidence comes to the surface in this country that the implants pose an inherent risk, then we will certainly be exploring the scope for a class action.
We've had 91 contact us about their implants that have ruptured.
Founder of the Medical Error Action Group, Lorraine Long, says more than half of those 91 cases are from Brisbane.
Common theme is armpit pain, right near the armpit towards the lower breast, but particular bras have irritated it.
Despite repeated requests, the TGA declined to appear on 7:30. 7:30 asked the TGA why not issue a blanket recommendation for an ultrasound or MRI for all women with PIP implants. The TGA says it doesn't regulate medical practice and cannot provide blanket recommendations on care. The TGA says it doesn't do laboratory testing of medical devices or medicines before they're authorised, and it says no explanted devices, in other words, PIP implants removed from patients, have yet been tested.
I'm beginning to wonder, even though there's no hard medical evidence for such, whether we should simply cut to the chase and remove all of these implants because it's been an inferior product in a number of patients.
That could be hard because there's no exact number of how many Australian women have PIP implants. But Dr. RODNEY COOTER hopes to expand the small voluntary register of breast implants.
We are now proposing an opt-out registry. In other words, people almost have to go onto the registry unless they have very good reasons, and that involves surgeons and their patients, so that in future we hope never to have these doubtful problems again.
Thank you. We're mothers, there's breast cancer survivors, there's, you know, women just want to feel okay, and we've done this. We didn't go in there and ask for a toxic substance that explodes in our chest. We weren't given. That wasn't what we were told we were getting, and the doctors weren't told that either. And it's just, the whole situation is horrendous. How did this happen?
7:30 also approached the Australian distributor Medical Vision Australia, which declined to comment. You can ring the breast implant information hotline on 1800 217 257. Sarah Dingle with that report.